Hey, everybody, I'm Christopher Greene. This is Green Wave Radio Live. It is Thursday, November 3rd, 2011. I want to welcome everybody to the show, those familiar faces, those new faces in the chat room. We have a great show lined up. I've got Storm Clouds gathering here on the line with us. We're going to break down, discuss, debate, open up ideas, open up the caller line with Occupy Wall Street. You know, I really think right now timing is critical. And this has been something I've been thinking about deeply. I think a lot of us have. And I'm really trying to think about, you know, how do we focus at this given point in time? Because we are literally living through, you know, this gigantic change. We you know, Occupy Wall Street's in flux. The movement really has just gotten started. But I think it's very important that we get a message out there. We get a clear central theme out there to the public and something that we unite on. And I wanted to read you a quote. It says, "History will have to record that the greatest tragedy of this period of social transition was not the strident clamor of the bad people, but the appalling silence of the good people." That was Martin Luther King Jr. I read that yesterday, and that really struck a chord with me and probably strikes a chord with you. People are awaking to the hardcore reality that, let's not beat around the bush here, we're all slaves. We're debt slaves. We're enslaved by the central banks around the world, whether or not this be the Federal Reserve here in the United States or whether this be the ECB. This is all about control. This is all about slavery. And it's all about conditioning the masses to stay in line and to behave. They don't want you to think. They don't want you to question. And, you know, the perfect example I always like to give is, if you don't believe me, then try to operate in today's paradigm. Try to operate in today's society. You want to buy a house? You want to buy a car? Need a college education? Food? Gas? Sorry, you can't afford it. But we can lend you the money. You see the key there? We can lend it to you at interest over the rest of your life until the day you die. Sound like a good deal? Probably not. And so that's the paradigm that we've been operating for the past several decades. And it all goes back to intelligent design. This is the blueprint. This was the plan all along. The plan was to crash the system. The plan was to have the dominoes fall. This is what they orchestrated in the first place. Why do you think they took out an insurance policy prior to the collapse of global capital markets in 2008? They knew it was coming. Again, it was the plan. It's the blueprint behind the design. And guess who the insurance policy is? You. You're the insurance policy. You're the one that's going to pay for it. You're going to pay for it through cuts to your pensions, through austerity. You're going to pay for the bailouts and the stimulus programs and everything else. It's all coming out of your pocket. And it's enriching the same people that caused the collapse in the first place. This is why we're experiencing the greatest transfer of wealth in the history of man. And it's not like this is a new thing. This has been going on for thousands of years. This is just modern day slavery. We have the illusion of freedom in this country when we're anything but free. And so we need to unite under a central theme, and we need to get really focused here in the very near future. You know, people lie to you and they say, you know what, you'll get a second chance. You'll get a chance. Just try again. Now, there's some truth to that, but I'm telling you, in regards to Occupy Wall Street, we get one shot to make a difference. One chance. And you know how much time we have left? You know what I think instinctually? I think we got about 30 to 60 days to drive home an appropriate message to the people and hopefully affect the positive change that we desperately need. So how do we need to unite? And I don't care if you're communist, if you're socialist, if you're capitalist, if you're libertarian, independent. I don't care if you believe in aliens, Jesus, or who knows what else. I really don't care. Maybe you worship the sun god. But we need to unite on something very specific. And what we need to unite on is we need to put an end to the global central banks around the world, and we need to jail and prosecute the criminals that they employ. It's that simple. We need to do that first. We need to implement this first. Then let's talk about demands. Then let the people decide what they want. Then let's institute and refresh the new system that we all can agree on that we need, because the current one isn't working. Just take a look at what's going on. Don't think it's a mistake. Don't think it's a coincidence. Not only that we're having a transfer of wealth here, but that the federal government indirectly and now directly through institutions like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and we're also seeing this in Europe through their respective institutions, now own the majority of real property. Do you guys get that? Do you understand that? They're taking all the land. They're taking all the real assets. They're taking all the property right before the inevitable collapse. And it's the classic create the problem, stoke the reaction. Remember, they want the reaction. Aaron, who's on the line with us, I'll have him elaborate on this in a minute. He did an excellent video, an open message to Occupy Wall Street, which I encourage you, if you haven't already watched it, go watch it. And if you like it, if it resonates with you, click the thumbs up and share it with friends. It's already had about 70,000 something odd hits, I think, last time I checked. So it's really exploded because the message resonates with the people. We all sense and know that change is coming. But what I'm telling you is the change that they have planned is not the change that we want. And it's exactly why we need to co-opt the movement that's being co-opted on our behalf. Again, this is all about bringing the new world order and bringing the police state and unifying the world and allowing these criminals to continue to siphon off wealth and maintain their power and control. They've done this throughout history. They've done this through thousands of years. Remember, you're the groundlings, America. You are the serfs. You are the peasants. Okay, you do not have freedom in this country. It's time that we put these tenets to the test. It's time we put things like our Constitution to the test, our freedom to the test, our freedom of speech and religion and the right to, assembly and all that. We've got to put that to the test now, because I'll tell you, two things will happen. Remember, these people work for us. These people are employed by us. People forget that. They're supposed to do what we tell them to do. What we need to tell them to do is step down. You step down right now, and we're prosecuting those criminals that, we think have wronged the people. And we need to do that. We need to institute some kind of moral high ground. We need a moral compass to guide our nation and nations around the world, because without it, all we have is a nation teetering on the verge of anarchy and inevitable collapse. And it's bankrupt both morally and financially, which is exactly where we sit today. Bankrupt. It's what's going on in Europe. We're hearing talks out of Greece and their prime minister talking about, he's going to have a referendum. He's not. He's going to let the people vote on the bailout. He's not. They're going to run out of money. They're not. It's a joke. This is just short-term volatility so the hedge funds can go in and rip off more people. They can just rip off the middle class and continue to do it. This has all been planned. At some point, the Eurozone's going to break up. We've been talking about this for years. It just doesn't work anymore. And what they're going to do is try to unify the whole world. They're going to try to unify the United States. They're going to try to unify Europe. They're going to try to unify Africa. It's called the New World Order. Call it whatever you want. And in the short run, in the interim, as this chaos continues to brew, guess what? They've already launched World War III. In fact, that's one of our semi-popular, semi-viral videos. It's had almost 100,000 hits, I believe. I expect it to go viral in the next coming years because it'll prove to be true. It's called Obama Launches World War III. So as I'm fumbling and I'm editing a video last night, which I pretty much was up all night working on, and I'm excited to be releasing this in the very near future, hopefully in the next 24 hours, which is really trying to focus on all these talking points. So again, if you like it, if it resonates with you, please click the thumbs up and favorite it. It's how we share our message with just not thousands of people, but millions of people. I'm reading about the fact that we are openly discussing an attack on Iran now, which we told you about years ago. This was all coming. We've got the Israeli prime minister, along with the United States and the UK, talking about an attack. They're going to attack Iran because they've got WMDs, just like Iraq. And I'm sure Iran and Ahmadinejad is probably scared, because think about what's happened recently. We've gone in, funded, and propagated the murder and assassination of people like Muammar Gaddafi. These people realize they're next. So they're probably going to launch a bomb against us. That's probably the reality. There's probably going to be some fireworks. It's an inevitable progression. And remember, this is a currency crisis. This is a collapse in society. We're living through the social collapse now. That is what Occupy Wall Street is. People are begging for some kind of solution. They're begging for positive change. We need to step in. We need to end the central banks now. We need to unite on this clear message, and we need to prosecute and jail these criminals. People like John Corzine. For example, we're looking at MF Global, the company that he runs, and he's a former politician. Big surprise. There's the revolving door between banker and politician. They run the country, then they go back to the private sector, then they rip off the American people, et cetera, et cetera. It's just how things work. These people literally commingle client accounts, customer accounts at his broker-dealer firm, which is illegal, by the way, and they bankrupt their shareholders to zero and then walk around scot-free as free men. They sail their yachts, they sip their wine, they play golf, they buy their third and fourth home, many of them yours. Who do you think owns the banks? They do. They're taking all the real property. So I want to bring Aaron on for your input on, I guess there's a lot of topics I just threw out there to discuss. I don't know where you want to dive into, but I guess the clear message that I really want to focus on today is just that, focus. We need a focus, we need a clear message, and we need to drive it home now, sooner rather than later, or I really think all will be lost, and we might as well pack our bags now and everybody on Occupy Wall Street just go home. Is that too harsh of a outlook? Am I right? Am I wrong? What are your thoughts, Aaron?
Well, in regards to what will happen if we do this or what will happen if we do that, I take a specific philosophy that is we have to do what we need to do. We have to do what's necessary regardless of the outcome. That is my perspective, and it's enabled me to accomplish more in my life, because a lot of times when you focus on whether you're going to succeed or not, it immobilizes you. And I think a lot of people, a lot of Americans are in that exact state. They think it won't work. I can't do anything. It's over. We've lost. So they don't do anything, even though they know in their heart what needs to be done. They know in their heart what they would do if they thought they had a chance. So they don't do it because they think they can't. The thing is, we may all have 1/100th of the actual necessary energy to do what's actually needed to be done. But if 100 of us get together, that's enough. We have to be willing to do the little thing that we don't see the result for, and just do it. That's what I believe. But you're right that we are living in a very, very crucial time, and that makes that thing that I just said even more crucial. That people break out of the paralysis and realize it's now or never. You gotta get into the game. If you cared ever, if you think there's anything worth fighting for, if you think your children's future is worth fighting for, you got to get into the game. And bringing it to focus, I mean, this is something that I think we're intentionally drawn away from that. We're intentionally, repeatedly drawn into distraction, multiple directions. I think it's one of the best ways to water down and weaken a movement is by injecting multiple contradictory ideas. The more ideas that a movement has, the more ideas that a movement tries to add to their list of demands, the less chance they have of accomplishing even a single one. And when you have what's happening in Occupy Wall Street, that's really clear. I mean, you have there's some ideas that are surfacing that are jewels. But then there's a whole bunch of them that there's absolutely no way that they could get that to fly with the rest of the American people. They aren't the 99% when they're holding that flag. For instance, regardless of what your opinions are, if you start saying, let's institute socialism, well, anybody in their right mind, anybody who knows the American public knows that would never fly. You're not the majority if you think, it's not the majority of Americans who want socialism. I mean, if you want any proof of that, just look at what happened when they tried to pass the health care bill. Mm-hmm. Split the country in half. And yet, the Occupy Wall Street movement tries to put that in under the list of demands. They try to put in universal health care. Well, come on. You saw what happened. We already have precedent. You already know that there's a lot of people who are willing to fight, not just disagree with you, but they're willing to get out in the streets and fight you against that. Mm-hmm. You take off a huge, massive amount of allies. And
Yeah, well, I think what we need to understand is that the demands don't matter at this point. We're going to get to the demands, but that's stage 2 or 3, maybe even 4. I mean, we first need to take these people out of power. Otherwise, we're going to the people that are still in control and saying, hey, here's our list of demands, implement them, and nothing's going to be done. Nothing will change. Do we not need to end these criminal institutions and prosecute these people first?
Well, I spent about 2 hours on the phone with 2 of the organizers of Occupy Minnesota, and after my video came out, because they contacted me, and what they told me is that they know that the demands aren't going to be listened to. Their idea that they have in their head is they're going to, put the list of demands to them, and then tell them, when they turn them down, then they're going to come back and say they're going to demand Congress step down of some sort of, and then after that, they don't know. And just like you were saying, that's really not going to work. Even if you had enough mass, that's not the right strategy. But first of all, we don't have the right mass yet. Like you were saying, we have to put the attention on the actual right target, and that's one thing that's really not being done right now. I mean, there's a lot of, when they say the 1%, there's a lot of people who have in their mind that the 1% is just the people who are in the upper financial bracket. And that's a huge, huge mistake. If you go down that road, I mean, it's not going to just be the rich people who are going to be resisting you. It's also going to be people who are in the middle class. I mean, I personally don't mind if somebody makes $100,000. I would like for us to have the opportunity to make $100,000. Why not?
Yeah, well, exactly. That's why we need to focus on who the real top 1% is. It's not your neighborhood attorney or physician that happens to make $100,000 and successful. No, it's a small group, secretive, niche of people that we'll get to, and we'll name names when we get back here from the break. We're also going to open up the phone lines. We'll be back in just a few. Hey, live. I'm Christopher Greene. We've got a lot going on today. Athens, debates, bailouts, EU weighs Greek exit. Papandreou's not going to step down. Now he is. We just keep getting more and more propaganda, literally pretty much every 5 minutes. I want to go back to that quote. History will have to record that the greatest tragedy of this period of social transition was not the strident clamor of the bad people, but the appalling silence of the good people. And again, that's Martin Luther King Jr. So how do we awaken, and I believe this is already happening, how do we awaken the sleeping giant? More and more people are joining the movement. More and more people are joining Occupy Wall Street. But what is it going to take to see millions of people in front of the Federal Reserve in Washington, D.C., and millions of people in front of the ECB, and millions of people in front of central banks around the world? What is that going to take? What is it going to take to prosecute and jail people like Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, people like Ken Lewis, former CEO of Bank of America, people like John Thain, former CEO of Merrill Lynch, people like Angela Mazzillo, former CEO of Countrywide? You see how a lot of these people aren't even in the game anymore? They've already moved on. They're already sailing their yachts in the Mediterranean. They're not in the public eye anymore. They're just walking around scot-free like free men. None of these people ever get prosecuted. None of these people ever go to jail. Yet you and I cross the street without looking both ways, and they beat us to a pulp and handcuff us and, send us to rot in a cage. If we don't pay our taxes, if we don't pay our property taxes, if we don't, pay into these social programs, they show up to our front door with guns. And if we still don't pay, they send us to rot in a cage. So how do we raise this public consciousness? I think it's already happening, but we need to target who these individuals are. We also need to target who these institutions are. And again, it's real simple. End the global central banks around the globe and jail and prosecute the same criminals that they employ. Give them a fair trial. Give them their constitutional rights, but if proven guilty in the court system, then jail them. And I'll tell you this, if the court system won't give these people a fair trial or prosecute them because they're all in bed with each other, which is the case if there's gross collusion everywhere we look, then let's prosecute all these people. Who's going to enforce it? Who's the enforcer? Who enforces the punishment? The punishments that's deserved. I'll tell you who needs to enforce it. We do. The people of America. Nobody else is going to do it. The criminals that are in bed with each other aren't going to do it. It's time now. We're already here. We're at this stage of the game. We've got our pitchforks out, and we're ready to burn the house down. That's what they've done to us. They've burnt our house down. It's our homes in real estate and retirement accounts and 401ks and pensions that have bitten the dust. Many Americans having lost everything the past couple years. Some people taking huge losses. Some people losing everything. Okay, I'm talking going to zero. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, maybe 2, 3, 4 generations of work, gone. Where did it go? Went to these people, the top 1%, the people that keep ripping us off. The John Corzines of the world, MF Global. The Lloyd Blankfeins that continue to tell us that they're doing God's work, that have the gall to tell us this. These are the people. These are the criminals. The Alan Greenspans, the Ben Bernankes, these people behind the veil, and the bankers. They're the people that need to be prosecuted. These are the people that need to be jailed. Aaron, how do we raise this public consciousness? How do we continue to strike an even bigger chord with more and more people? Raise the awareness from thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions. And how do we mobilize?
Well, first of all, we got to start addressing some of the discrepancies in the different directions that people are trying to pull from in the movements that we're involved in ourselves. I mean, if you're involved in a movement that's more right-leaning, then you've got to deal with the people who are around you and try to work with them and try to get them thinking, okay, hey, we got to put some of this stuff aside because it's making us completely unable to work with people who are maybe a little bit more to the left. You know, that doesn't mean we can't believe these things. It's not saying that we have to change our beliefs, but hey, we can't put that up there as one of our objectives right now because we have no chance in hell of getting it, and we have other things, other more important fish to fry. And you know, there's a number of issues that I see that aren't resolved in the minds of people who are in my sphere, the people who tend to have our basic way of thinking. And you know, one of these big primary questions is it the government's fault, or is it the corporation's fault, or is it the banker's fault? You know, people get attached to some of these ideas like it's the government. It's you know, basically that implies what we need to do. The solution is we need to vote the guys out. We need to, you know, make some kind of movement to get people to vote for the right person or do the right thing right here, and then we get a better government in place, then you know, that'll fix it. Or you know, if you have somebody a little bit more extreme, I might say, let's just get rid of government altogether. And the real question is, who owns government? You know, when you have a situation where the government no longer prints money, they don't print their own money. They have a bank print it for them, and then the bank loans it to them. The bank makes it out of nothing, loans it to the government, and the government is supposed to give them back that money plus interest. How on earth is it not going to end up being the government, the slave, to the banker? There's no scenario where that doesn't happen. Inevitably, the banker holds all the cards. Mm-hmm. People need to realize that. Because if they keep going down the route of, okay, let's fix the government, let's fix the government, well, you're going to be at that for a long time.
Yeah, well, we look at the debt system, and I want to maybe dig into this, and we can think about it, and take calls from our listeners and our viewers as well. If you want to give us some input, give us a call. I got a question for myself or Aaron. Give us a call. But look at the debt system in particular. What is the benefit? And I'm just trying to evaluate it objectively. What is the benefit of a debt-based system? What's the benefit of leverage? Why is it needed? Is it just there to enslave us? Do we really need debt? I mean, do we really need a mortgage? Because it's all a function of credit. It's all a function of the payment you can afford. Most Americans, most people around the world, they don't have the money, they don't have the cash, but they can certainly go and take on debt, and that's what they've sold us on. That's what these people have sold us on, is just the way things are. You know, the same people that burn the system to the ground and then have us bail them out when it's convenient, bail out their friends and family while they steal from the rest of us. So what's the advantage of it? I mean, if we just got rid of the debt system, I'm looking at my home state here in Arizona, which has already seen peak to trough declines 50, 60, 70%. I mean, that's how catastrophic it is. And we're seeing this in other states across the country. Why not just take the same home that, let's say the median home in Arizona now is $200,000, which is probably ballpark where it is. It's actually probably lower. It's probably like $170,000. If that's the case, that's just a function of credit, and that's just a function of the debt system in the mortgage market, mortgage-backed securities, blah, 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 all these exotic instruments. Remember, these geniuses created that blew up in our faces. Why not just take that away? What is a house worth then? Is it worth $50,000? Is it worth $20,000? Is it worth $10,000, $5,000? And why do we need debt? People could just pay cash.
Well, I mean, the first question you have to deal with is debt as money. I mean, the fact that money is debt. People don't realize that. They don't understand because they still have this idea that no, money is backed by something. No. Money, current money that you use is debt. Therefore, the creation of money, the way money is created right now, is guaranteed to fail every single time. I always say to people, it's not that the system was, this crash wasn't, by design. It wasn't in the sense that it was somebody sitting in behind a counter planning. But the moment they set up the monetary system, it was guaranteed to collapse. The reason for that is very simple. Most people just don't think about it. If you have a bank that's creating money and then they loan it out, but they demand interest, the interest doesn't exist yet because they just created new money. So they've created new money, and so there's this money that came out of nowhere, and this new interest is supposed to come out of nowhere. In the end, they have to create more new money so that the system will have enough money to pay back that interest. But in the end, somebody always ends up being unable to pay back because there is not enough money in the system. There can never be enough money in the system to pay back the interest because the new interest is constantly being created in the process of creating money. It's a pyramid scheme from the very beginning.
So elaborate on this. I know you are, but I just want to illustrate this to the audience. So it's money backed by nothing. So there's no value. There's no real value. Is that is that what you're saying? It's fake value. It's fake
more than money. It's less than nothing. That's what people is so astounding. People don't realize. No, it's less than nothing. It's negative space. It's debt. It's debt, and it's debt with interest attached. So inevitably, the system will have to collapse from the moment the system starts. If you start on a debt-based system, you are guaranteeing its collapse. That very moment, the moment the Federal Reserve was created, that was the day that the death sentence was signed for the United States. Whether it was actually executed at that moment is irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
It had to fall. From 1913 to present has just been death row.
Yeah, I remember there was an interview with Alec Baldwin, with the guy that runs the YouTube channel We Are Change, and he was asking him, what do you think about ending the Federal Reserve? He kind of gave he actually posed a pretty good question. He said, I'm not educated to know what would happen if we ended the Federal Reserve. So until he's educated on what would happen and what would be the outcome, he doesn't have an opinion. So he's kind of beating around the bush, not really answering the question, but it is somewhat of a valid question. So what do we have? Let's say the Federal Reserve, we take these institutions out, we vote them out, whatever we need to do. We end central banks around the world. Then what? And I guess we're kind of getting to that second, third, maybe fourth stage where the demands start to come in. Do we need these systems in place at all? Does there need to be a new system of some kind in place governing the debt and capital markets? Or do we just need to do away with the current, capital market system altogether? The derivatives market, this multi-quadrillion market that really serves no real purpose outside of, the elite traders of the world, buying and selling insurance on, things like bonds and, we would talk about things like CDS spreads, et cetera. Really does not serve humanity any real kind of purpose. So what are your thoughts there? I mean, do we need something new? Do we just need to get rid of it altogether? Kind kind of a tough question.
Well, there's going to be a massive restructuring no matter what. If we do nothing, it's going to collapse. If we try to take the necessary action, that's going to be very similar to a collapse. The only difference is that we're going to be the ones holding the reins when it's done. And I think that's a preferable outcome. I would much rather the people be standing there deciding, okay, now what do we do? Rather than the people who basically caused the mess, this basically unrolling what they've already had in mind, which is not going to be pleasant. Looking at the trajectory we're on, it's not going to be a good thing. So I think that's the most important thing. We have to be in a position to be making a decision. I have my idea of what I would like to see happen, but I'm not pushing that right now. A lot of people ask me, like, well, what's the solution? We're not there. We're not there yet. And honestly, until we've gotten mature enough as a people, until we've started learning to operate together as a movement, and bringing together multiple factions from the left, the right, and from people who are operating left of Mars or right of Jupiter, then we're not going to be capable of doing what's necessary. We need to be able to sit down at a table with people who have vastly different opinions and have a civil conversation. And Americans at this point aren't mature enough to do that. That's unfortunate. But we have to be able to get to that point.
And I think a lot of us, and we're all guilty of this at times, have the tendency to want to only think or operate in the existing paradigm, what we've kind of learned in our experience and kind of how we've been educated and what we've learned from friends and family where, people identify themselves, well, I'm a capitalist, I'm a socialist, I'm a communist, I'm this, I'm that, I'm red, I'm blue, I'm green. But I think to have a real discussion, a real conversation, we kind of need to step out of all those boxes and really just throw it all out on the table and, think and discuss things that maybe we're not thinking of right now that again, I think we need a new paradigm is what I'm trying to say. We need a new paradigm. The old paradigm is broken. These existing models aren't working. And, I know there's a good argument regarding capitalism that, it's not capitalism that's failed. We haven't allowed it to take root. And I agree with that. But for a minute, should we just stop? Should we throw the guns down, so to speak, and all of our defense mechanisms and just have an open, honest conversation and consider all viewpoints? Because it seems like nobody ever does that. People are afraid of that.
Yeah, they're afraid of being co-opted. They're afraid of... I think people are afraid of other people hearing an idea and running with it. And, there's some truth to that when you have people who don't know how to think. But when you get down to the point where you're actually trying to work with other people, you have to. You have to.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick break here. I see that we have the phone lines lighting up. Give us a call. We're going to take a lot of questions and calls from our viewers today. Again, our number is 402-237-2525, 402-237-2525. We'll be back here in just a few. Hey, everybody. I'm Greene. This is Greene Wave Radio Live. I'm here with Storm Clouds Gathering. We're about to take some calls from our viewers. And here we have Greece teetering. The government continues to debate a proposed referendum on staying in the Euro zone on Thursday. European leaders talked for the first time of a possible Greek exit to preserve the single currency, which is interesting because that would make all of the bailout money, all the billions, if not trillions of dollars spent on Greece, multiple bailouts, completely pointless and a complete waste of money. So I hope the people in Europe rioting in the streets as we speak are feeling good about that the gross austerity measures and cuts that are going to affect their lives and basically destroy their lives was just completely moot. In fact, they're now just talking about, we don't think it works, so we're just going to let Greece go, which, by the way, was the intention all along. Again, this is just a charade. It's a dog and pony show, and you've got people like George Papandreou really just trying to maintain control and power. That's why he announced a referendum in the first place. And I had a question from a viewer. It says, thanks for the video. What are your views on the Papandreou's move of calling off the referendum less than 1 week after deciding to hold it? And how did he profit from this move? Well, really, I think, number one, he's just trying to maintain power. So I think he called the referendum to try to align himself with the people that he's probably very afraid of are just going to unseat him out of power by force, almost Muammar Gaddafi style. I don't think it'll come to that. drastic of a situation, although it could. And then he's also being coerced by the powers that be, by Angela Merkel and Nicolas Sarkozy, the love affair that I've always talked about. And they're telling him, hey, if you don't, call this off, then, you're out. So he's kind of between a rock and a hard place. And I wanted to read this. It says Greece was due to get a vital 8 billion euro installment this month and said it will run out of money in mid-December if it does not get the loan. So it literally needs 8 billion euros now, or it runs out of money in 30 to 60 days. That's how dire of a situation is. And why do we need a eurozone? Why don't we need a single currency in these 17 member states? Why do we even need it? And in fact, why would Germany and why would France and why would these other countries in their right mind even want Greece to be a part of the program? Let the country go. It doesn't make any sense. If these other countries are insolvent, let them handle their own problems. I mean, you would think that the countries would be selfish, but that's not what they want. What they want to do is unify not just Europe, but they want to unify the entire world, which is extremely interesting to think about it because it's not working in Europe. It's not working in these other places, yet you're telling me we're going to take a model that's broken, that isn't working, and then now unify the entire globe? This is why we have World War III. This is why bombs, missiles, and soon-to-be nuclear attacks are coming to the world. This is why we're talking about, bombing Iran. This is why we're talking about taking out people like Ahmadinejad. It's why we took out Muammar Gaddafi. Aaron, I know we've had some pretty awesome discussions actually in the past on World War III, an area I always really appreciate your expertise. What do you make out of the recent developments of what's happening in Israel, things that we're seeing from the UK, the United States? It seems to be accelerating very quickly.
Well, remember when we talked about a few shows ago the decision that they were going to actually leave Iraq? I said that I felt that was kind of a bad sign because that means that they're freeing up resources for something else. And I think that we're going to start seeing that something else materialize. It may not be Iran. I don't know if they're quite up for that just yet. It'll be Iran or Syria or perhaps a surprise. But I think it's between Iran and Syria at this point. They might go for Syria because it's the low-hanging fruit, and because Syria is an ally of Iran, and that would draw Iran in and then give them a good pretext. If they were playing strategically, that would be probably the way they would do it. But some of these guys obviously don't have their strategy together at points because they seem to do quite a few serious blunders.
I'm sorry. Continue. Well, okay. Let me interject because this was just kind of hitting the surface of my head. I'm pulling up a map of Iraq here, just to kind of get a visual on it. And I was thinking too. I was reading something yesterday, and I guess this is what seems to be different. This is what call it propaganda, what it is. Let's try to dig into it. But it seems to me that the Prime Minister of Israel, I mean, they're saying we were planning attacking Iran. Like the plans had been leaked. This is what they're saying. This is what I'm reading into. And this is coming from The Guardian. It's coming out of newswires out of the UK, the United States. And I was even reading something yesterday on North Korea. They were talking about how North Korea utilizes a Twitter account now, and they tweet some 3 to sometimes 20 tweets a day. And this was from the American perspective. They were saying, it's all tweeting propaganda from the newswires out of North Korea, Kim Jong-il's dictatorship. And the whole time I'm reading it, I'm thinking this is hilarious because there's no difference between our newswires. Like, what do you think our newswires do? Every time I read something, I question everything I read, and I try to read behind the veil. Okay, why is this coming out now? Why are they positioning it this way? Why are they saying it this way? Why are they using this terminology? Well, let me see. Let me connect the dots here. And then, we look at a map of Iraq, and then we see the neighboring countries. We see Kuwait and, all the other places. And that's where we're repositioning our troops right now. That just like you said, we're freeing up resources to reposition. And something else I read that was key is somebody was commenting that Obama does not want to launch an Iranian strike before the 2012 elections, which makes sense, but it's also crazy to think about. I mean, this is the guy that said he was going to withdraw all of the troops everywhere and end the wars. And now they're talking about that he might have to preemptively strike Iran prior to the 2012 elections. Why are we getting fed this propaganda? And I'm just trying to read behind the veil here. Maybe you can give us your take and insight on it. Am I missing something here? Are we missing something? Is this a distraction, or is this the real intent?
I have no idea. You're dealing with people who have serious mental issues. There's no telling what they'll do. I mean, normal people just want to have a house with their family and have enough food to eat, have decent clothes to wear, and have some free time to enjoy their life. These people, it's very hard to relate to them. I look at why on the hell would they want these things? Why would they want more money, more power, when they already have all the money and all the power that you possibly want?
Yeah,
so I'm at a loss.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And I'm just looking back at that map again, but we literally, as we speak, have troops being repositioned out of Iraq. And I've read estimates, there's still supposed to be 20 to 30,000 troops left behind in Iraq. But they're moving into Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Yemen, Oman, if I'm saying that correctly, and Kuwait. So we're really just completely positioned around Iran and around Syria. The two targets that it seems like something's going to happen soon. And one of the things I was reading about is they say that the nuclear facilities in Iran are actually buried so deeply into the mountainside. And I don't know if this is propaganda or not. This is what they're telling us, that U.S. forces, and especially Israel, because obviously they're so close to this mess, they're surrounded by all these neighboring countries and threats. They don't think that if they launch a strike, in fact, they think the window closes in the next 60 days, that the nuclear facilities will be buried so deep that even if they launch a full-scale missile attack, that they will not be able to penetrate the facilities. So I thought that was pretty interesting, but it kind of smells rotten to me. It smells like propaganda to, hey, we're going to take action sooner rather than later. Don't be surprised if we launch the nuke first.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've heard that kind of thing be used as a pretext for we need to use small-scale nukes against them, which is just the most absolute irony. You're talking about they might use a nuke. They might. No, they don't even have a nuke yet. They might get a nuke. They might get a nuke. They might get a nuke. So let's nuke them. Like, what?
Yeah, that's a perfect point. Yeah, we're going to nuke these people first because they're going to nuke us.
No, because they might make a nuke. They haven't even made one yet. So let's go kill them.
Oh God. Okay, I'm going to bring on one of our callers here to join in on the insanity, get their take. Hi, you're on Green Wave Radio Live.
Hey, how you doing, Chris?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Pretty good. It's listening to you and Aaron's conversation, and they have every intention on going into Iran. They're going to use it. Probably they're going to use Israel as a pretext. I mean, sooner or later, just as this whole PNAC thing that was written by the neocons, I think about 20 years ago or so, they're following it to a T. I mean, here's my situation. I think about this. I listen to your show. I think I've called in about 3 or 4 times. We have a country, really a world, an entire infrastructure that has been unequivocally taken over and usurped by tyranny. The reason why there hasn't been any prosecutions with these bankers and these with all this fraud, global fraud and derivatives and CDOs, I mean, these are just fancy names for fraud. They should just cut out all the initials and just call it exactly what it is. It's fraud. Is because we do not have the infrastructure. We do not have the law enforcement apparatus to prosecute these.
Sure. Well, that's because everyone else is in bed with each other. And hold on to that thought. We're going to bring you right back here after the break. Again, I'm with Storm Clouds Gathering and our callers. Give us a few. We'll be right back.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? You now entering the Daily Wave, hosted by Mr. Christopher Greene himself. On me, I'm just a fellow truth speaker. I go by the name of Doctrine. Welcome to the Daily Wave, starring Christopher
What's up, America?
Greene.
I'm Christopher Greene. This is Green Wave Radio Live. I'm here with Storm Clouds Gathering. Our callers. I wanted to read something else. It says, the moment the slave resolves that he will no longer be a slave, his fetters fall. Freedom and slavery are mental states. Mahatma Gandhi. And before we went to the break, we were talking to our last caller, and he was just illustrating to our audience, pretty much what we all feel and already know, but putting it to words and articulating it, which is very difficult to do. But just talking about the fact that we live in just utter tyranny on all fronts, and it's hitting us from all different angles. Caller, did you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, and I served my country. I was in the Marine Corps. I was actually in reconnaissance, and I went to in 1989. I went to Panama, and this is when I really believed, before I started doing a lot of research into exactly how this country operates and the reasons why we go to war. Comes to find out that Manuel Noriega was actually working for the CIA. The United States of America never has clean hands in anything. We are able to get in bed with some of the most brutal dictatorships in human history in order to serve our goals. And I'm just sick and tired of, people. Listen, my conclusion is this: we need a regime change in the United States of America. The only way this is going to happen is we have to take the power back. We don't have a law enforcement infrastructure. The alphabet soup, the CIA, FBI, all those have been subverted. They're all collectivists. It's all one big party with the banksters and the politicians. I mean, there's no way for the common man to take his country back. I mean, I've thought about moving out of the United States, but you know what? I'm going to stay here and fight. I was born here. My daughter was born here, and this is my country. And a lot of people feel this way. You just feel, what do we just take arms and storm Washington? I mean, how do we get, when every single infrastructure that we know to be law enforcement, military-industrial complex has been absolutely subverted? How do we get the country back? We can protest.
Yeah,
we can.
I hear what you're saying. I think what we first need to do is validate that this is an illusion. Validate it. And maybe we're wrong, but I argue this is the illusion of freedom. So let's put the existing system that they say we have. Let's put the existing rights that they say we have to the test, and let's see if it's true. And again, let's ask these people to step down. Let's ask that these people are prosecuted. Let's ask that some of these people go to jail. And
put
that
won't happen. Yes, that won't happen. They're not gonna. It took them 100 years to get this way. They're not gonna just give up that power easily. They're just not. I mean, we live under the illusion of a constitution. We live, and I practice law, and I'm telling you this. We live under the illusion that we actually have rights, but when it comes down to it, we don't. All that's been subverted a long time ago, and I get so frustrated, and I see just everyday people just going along with the system. Aaron did a magnificent video. And I guess it showed the guy from Batman, and all these people are going up what is it, Aaron? The obedience. Aaron, what is it?
I don't remember which. Oh, the one with the. I don't know which one you're talking about. Actually, I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know the one with Batman. So.
The people just being obedient, the command structure, the chain of obedience.
The chain of obedience. Oh yeah, that wasn't Batman. That was that had an actor from Batman, but
yeah, and it just the chain of obedience of people just going along and get along in the system. They just don't care as long as they get their loaf of bread and their cable TV and it's just the ignorance is just so pervasive. First, I mean, you have to break through that structure. It is so ingrained. The propaganda, the propaganda tool in this country is just so magnificent, and it's just.
You're exactly right, Claude. I just want to interject there. You're 100% correct, but that's how we break the chains. Both you and I and our viewers and a lot of us realize it's an illusion. We realize these people aren't going to unseat themselves. They're not going to prosecute them. So it's never going to happen. Just like you said, it's not. But that's a necessary step that we must take, because there's a lot of Americans, millions of people, not just in America, around the globe. They actually think that they still have these rights, that they still have these freedoms. So we need to put it to the test and show them, actually, we don't. You're 110% wrong. We need to. Some people need to see the brutality of the system. They need to see the police state in action. I mean, we're starting to get a sneak preview of it with Occupy Wall Street. We saw this in Oakland with the tear gas and, the people getting beat up and the girls being, hit over the head. But we need to show that. Then the sleeping giant of this country, the real Americans, the real patriots, then we've awakened. Then there's millions of people suddenly standing in front of the Federal Reserve with pitchforks. And
it's almost, I don't want, but in a way I want it, in a way I don't, for this whole movement just to escalate to that point. Because until we put this tyranny down, we're just never going to see the true freedom that we're entitled to, not just by the Constitution, just inalienable freedoms, just by, if you just want to bring in religion, by God. I mean, we need to break this bondage. If not, I mean, my daughter's going to be in bondage. I don't know if either one of you. I know you're our daughter, Aaron. I see her on the videos. It's just going to be, how do we break this bondage so we just don't carry this bondage, this lineage, from generation to generation of just this indoctrination into this false paradigm? I mean, I want to break. I would like to break it now, so when she gets older, she doesn't have to live through the same thing, all these falsities like I have. I mean, it's just.
Can I speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, Aaron, why don't you respond?
I mean, this is something that I've been really thinking about a lot. I mean, me and Chris have been talking about this a lot. It doesn't matter what weapon you use. You have to get an army first. You have to be in a position to actually use it in mass. We could use financial weapons, or it could be physical weapons. I think it could be much more effective to use financial weapons. Imagine if 50% of the country had enough unity to say, April 15th, we stop paying taxes, and we pull our money out of the bank, and we stop paying our credit cards, and we stop paying our mortgages. Boom. It's done. It all comes down right there. All of it. They won't be able to pay for anything. Their system is based on us paying them to suppress us. And we're paying for our enslavement. You stop paying for your enslavement, you stop cooperating, stop being a cog in the machine, it ends. It ends. But you have to build that mass first. And that requires studying crowd psychology. It requires looking at what works rather than what you want to work. And organizing with people across, perspectives that you might not necessarily agree with, rather than trying to impose all of our limited perspectives onto every single person when they're obviously not going to accept it, and therefore just dividing us. And this is what it takes. We have to be able to get to a point where we can say, like Chris was saying in the very beginning, where we bring it down to one concentrated idea that we can all agree on and say, okay, let's push for this. Let's push for this. Affirm it. This is what we're going to do. Repeat it. Repeat it. Repeat it. And then it will spread by itself. This is just human nature. This is how it works. This is how the enemy controls us. They say something is true. It could be completely bullshit. They say it's true. They repeat it. They repeat it. They repeat it. And it gets into the consciousness of the people, and then it becomes true by default. No one questions it. That might not be the thing that you like, but we have to be thinking in those terms because that's what works.
Yeah, and Carl, I'm going to let you respond to that in just a second, but that's a show of force that isn't physical force necessarily. That's just really spreading, sharing a common idea, a common thread, and taking action on it. And again, not buying into the system completely breaks the system. And then we get the change we want. Then we take the next step. How did you want to respond to that, caller?
Absolutely. I thought about things along those lines. I said, what if we just had a workout? What if people just didn't go to work? You can't tax people if they don't go to work. What if we just had a revolution where we throw a stone in the whole machinery and say, listen, we're just not going to pay taxes. We're not going to work. We're not going to work as slaves in these corporate mills. But the thing about this, they've had decades of propaganda, and people are just too scared of losing what they already have. I talk to people, they just don't want to lose what they already have. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea, but I just don't want to, and rightfully so. I mean, they have their families to think about. People are just too afraid of the repercussions behind any type of mass movement like that. And I think the only way we're going to
be losing those things anyway.
Yeah, we need it.
And as that starts to happen, that's when
lose it anyway. But they don't understand that, because the psychology has been, this is what you got to do to get ahead in America. Well, America doesn't work anymore. I'm sorry to say, it hasn't worked for a long time. We're just basically treading water. And until we get to I'm just wondering, what does maybe a nuclear weapon has to go off in the United States? I'm not advocating that. What sensational event has to happen for Americans to wake up and say, listen, we can't go down the road of all these wars. We can't go down the road of all this world hegemony anymore, because it's affecting us not only just financially. I've been out of the country several times. There's a lot of places that I've been to in the past, even in the 90s, that I wouldn't go to now because of what America's done abroad. People have this sense that, everything America does, we're always the white hats. Well, Gaddafi was so many people. If you look into the history of Gaddafi, and I'm not saying that, every ruler, look at our rulers for the past. Look at the Clintons and look at all the people, all the rulers that we've had, and all the atrocities that they've conducted overseas. And they're all right with that. If you look into Gaddafi's history, he wasn't completely bad. He did a lot in 42 years to bring Libya to the place where it is today, as once was the crown jewel of North Africa. But they went over there, they saw an opportunity to go over there and take his regime out. And didn't have anything to do with the Libyan people, just like they didn't have anything to do with the Iraqi people. They don't care about people. It's all about...
Wait a minute, caller. We're liberating the rest of the world. This is about freedom. This is about instilling democracies around the globe. I'm being facetious, obviously.
And kinetic military actions. Golly, I forgot about that. And we got a Nobel Peace Prize laureate to back that up. Of course, they put a... and I'm an African American, but they put a black face on black wars, and I'm supposed to be okay with that? Hey, I don't care who bombs and kills innocent people. If it's wrong, it's wrong. I don't get into this whole white-black paradigm. Listen, if you're jeopardizing my daughter's future, I don't care what color you are. And a lot of I'm going to put it out there right now on this show, a lot of black people think just because Obama's black, whatever he does, we have to reaffirm it. I don't reaffirm wrong on any juncture. If it's wrong, it's wrong. I'm not going to get behind somebody because of their race, just because we got the first black. Yeah, look how that's turned out to be. Mm-hmm. I don't care about him being black. If he's wrong, he's wrong. If he's killing people, he's killing people. Just like I was against the Bush wars. And people need to get off of that crap in this country and start speaking out for true liberty. And those people over there, they just want to live a life, just like you guys were discussing earlier. They just want to live their lives. They want to have their families, and they don't deserve to be bombed at barbecues or any other place in the world just because we want to go over there and loot the resources. That's my feeling on this whole. People need to get off of this crap, of this whole supporting Obama just because he's black. Hey, if Obama came here and with an AK-47 and shot my family, I would take offense to that, and I would take his ass out just like I would if George Bush did. People need to get off of that. I'm for liberty, and I'm for freedom.
Geez, listening to what you're saying, we need to find a way to get you on the mainstream TV, on CNN, the BBC, and more people need to hear what you're saying right now. And you asked a fundamental question, what kind of catalyst is needed for the people to wake up and for us to actually get this change? I think the catalyst, we've already had it. The catalyst was 2008. It was the collapse of the entire financial system. It's this structural collapse. That amount in 2008 was $15 trillion that was literally siphoned off from the middle class and upper class, and it was geared and redistributed to the real, again, emphasize the real top 1%, just a small group of people that are behind the central banks around the world. So the event's already happened. The catalyst is already there. That's why we have Occupy Wall Street. That's why we've got an organic movement. A lot of people already realize it. And when people lose everything, they take to the streets, which is exactly where we are now. People are taking their pitchforks to the streets, so to speak. But what we need to do is educate more people that this is what's happened. This is the tragedy. This is what they're doing, because there's a lot of people that still don't get it. They just don't understand. And maybe they haven't been as personally affected as a lot of us have, the past several years. They will be, just like Aaron's telling you, they will be. They're going to feel the pain. If they're afraid of losing what they have or what they still have left, it's about to go away. So is that not worth fighting for? Is that not worth standing up to?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just that paradigm. We're dealing with social engineering to its perfection. It took me years to break through that. I could not believe the unspeakable, the unequivocal evil that this country was behind. It took me years to research it and get right into the crust of everything to find out, wait a minute, I've been living a life of 40 years. That's an astounding thing to wake up one day and say, listen, everything that I've believed in, everything that I've stood for has been an absolute fraud. It's almost like being reborn, pushing through the womb again just to try to, okay, well, now this is what I know to be true.
Yeah, and we got to run to a quick break here, and we're going to bring some other callers. But you're an example. You're a hero. You're one of the American patriots that everyone should look up to as more and more people go through the process themselves. We'll be back here in just a few. Stay tuned. We'll be taking more calls from our listeners. Hey, everybody. This is Greene Wave Radio Live. Clouds gathering, and I'm glad to see our caller actually held on through the break there. And I know Aaron wanted to respond to some of the comments he was making, but this is just a perfect example of what we need in this country. We need people like you to speak out. You need to raise your voice, pick up a camera, pick up a pen and paper, and do something. And speak your mind and get it out there. And this is what alternative media is all about. I mean, we all need to help each other. We'll distribute this all over the internet. I've got a small platform. Aaron's got a small platform. These are all growing. So let's continue to share the message. Aaron, I know you wanted to respond to our caller. I believe our caller is still there. What did you want to comment?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was impressed by the way that you were speaking there, and I think a lot of other people would be too. And what I wanted to say is that, a lot of times, like I was saying earlier, we can get trapped in this idea of like what we won't be able to accomplish because we look at all the obstacles. So we say, I can't do it. There's just way too much. We have to look at what we need to do, not what we will be able to achieve, and do the necessary action. Do the necessary action. And if we do that, we'll accomplish more than if we try to only do the things that we think that we're going to be able to do. If there's something that's so important that it has to be done regardless, then do it. And if Americans could take that and start walking with it and actually, do the little steps that they can, they'd be amazed what could actually be achieved. Because the world as we know it is structured by ideas. And if you want to change the world, you have to change ideas. And ideas absorb very slowly in a culture. But once they catch on, they can spread like wildfire. And the example that I was going to use, that it's actually like a most common example when you're talking to people about this, is the 101st monkey. don't know if you've ever heard that story, but as essentially this concept, it's supposedly true. I don't know, whether it is or not, but the metaphor is good enough. But essentially, the scientists were studying monkeys on this particular island, and one monkey started to take his roots as they were eating. Instead of just eating it directly with all the dirt on it, he started taking it and walking down to the ocean and rinsing it off first. And they started observing that the other monkeys that were directly around him started copying. Who knows how that happened? Maybe they tasted his fruit and realized it was less crunchy and they kind of liked it. But regardless, it started spreading in this group. And as that group of monkeys moved around the island, it eventually started spreading to other monkeys, one after another, until eventually the whole island had that habit. But then what they were shocked by was that at the same time when they were observing these groups of monkeys, they observed that the same behavior leapt across to another set of islands. That out of the realm of what they thought was possible, it leapt into the consciousness of the entire species, and that the other monkeys started rinsing their roots as well. And that's not trying to be mystical or like go into fairy tale land, but to say that when we reach into it and do what's absolutely necessary and start putting it out there to whoever we can, and as much as we can, then something has the potential to go beyond what we are.
Yeah, I'm thinking of just some basic psychology and courses that I've taken in the past. I'm thinking of the term groupthink, and I just Googled it here. And, it's just saying as a term, groupthink was first coined by Irving Janis. However, the topic has been discussed extensively by social scientists. It refers to the narrowing of thought by a group of people, leading to the perception that there is only one correct answer, in which to even suggest alternatives becomes a sign of disloyalty. And groupthink may start as a view announced or adopted by a dominant member of a group, then it is quickly followed and observed by other members. It can be found in various levels of social interaction, such as in the family, among friends, work, or in large organizations. And this is pretty interesting. It says indoctrination to the U.S. power elite. Groupthink. It says the power elite ruling the United States have a view that America is an empire, though they never tell that directly to their indoctrinated population. Whenever it is publicly stated, it is obscured in a terminology which cannot be understood by the average person, such as the term of Pax Americana, used only by James Baker III in his memoirs. It says, when Americans are fed up with one party, usually after 8 years of wars, corruption, and bad economic times, they vote for the other party. Groupthink. The vast majority of American voters are trapped into thinking as Democrats or Republicans. Very few think outside the box to vote for other parties or to create another party. This is because of the long-term indoctrination process into the world vision of the power elite, who divided themselves into the two faces of the same coin. Did you want
I've done a lot of, believe me, I'm out there. I mean, I'm not doing YouTube videos, but I mean, I take it to the belly of the beast. I get on the White House official so-called website, and I blast these people for what they are. And I don't know who listens to this, but I've ran across a lot of people just through posting true information and not this watered down, everybody, feels they put something out. Oh, Michelle Obama's first tweet. I think I wrote something. Listen, why don't you try tweeting Gaddafi? Oh, well, you can't tweet Gaddafi because your husband had him murdered, this ceremoniously, extrajudicially murdered without a trial, without any type of investigation into his so-called war crimes. And I get all this. I get people just bombarding me, and I'm sure you guys deal with this because you've been on YouTube a long time. They're standing up for the system. There's one guy. I mean, I go back and forth with him. I give him history. They just don't want to hear it. They're just stuck and they're just locked into this paradigm that the United States is right. I said, why don't you do a little bit of history into Gaddafi? Why don't you do a little bit of history of why we go into these aggressive and offensive wars before you come at me with some, just because you heard it from the official White House website that this guy had to be taken out. Why don't you go into the reasonings why the United States goes into these oil-producing countries? Then you can break that paradigm. Maybe you can understand or try to learn something. It's just trying to open up people's mind and break through this whole perception that anything the United States does, it has to be right. That's a false paradigm it's been packaged and produced for so many years, and so many people just buy into it. I mean, I have a YouTube channel. I get like 100 emails saying, how could you? You're un-American. No, I am American. This is still America. It is American to have this conversation that the three of us are having right now on this radio station. It's American to have back and forth banter about, true equalities and true freedom. Listen, if you cannot have constructive criticism about these people, they just don't even want to hear it. You're automatically bad. If you say anything negative about the country, you're bad. They need to break through this paradigm. I will continue to do it. Maybe I will start producing videos to get them out there.
Well, you should. And, what is your YouTube?
Subscribe.
Yeah, me too. What is your YouTube channel? What's the name?
It's Close Quarter Tyranny.
Close Quarter Tyranny.
Yeah, like close quarter combat. We're in close quarter tyranny.
all one word.
Yeah, well, I'm subs of you and Aaron's channel.
It's hard to find subs. I mean, like when you go through a sub list, it's really hard.
Yeah, because you guys have so many. And I'm going to start to get more active and aggressive with this. I've been doing it. I've been trying to break it down just on a personal level. People I run into in my profession or people I run into everywhere, and just try to break this paradigm down. I mean, I suggested last time I think I was on there that you should go more get T-shirts out there. Hey, I would sport a Green Wave T-shirt in a minute. And if you need help with something like that, you and I need to have a conversation outside of this broadcast. And just to get the word, listen, tune into this radio station. Tune into this YouTube channel. This guy has some formidable information that you need to hear. If you don't like where the direction of the country's in, people, it's like they wallow in their own slop like a pig. They don't like the way things are going, but they don't want to hear anything that's adverse to their own pre-indoctrinated position, their own scripted position. Yeah, I don't like the way I'm losing my house. They foreclosed on my house. They repossessed my car. I lost my job. My dog left me. Whatever. But listen, these things just aren't happening to you just because you have bad luck. This is all by design. We have to break through and penetrate through this whole thing that this is we're just sort of in a dip. And sooner or later, they're going to loosen up these credit purse strings, and then we're going to get the charge cut. People actually think that this whole credit expansion is coming back. I practice bankruptcy law. I know the mindset. Well, how many years do I have to wait before I can go out and get more credit to run up? Well, you can only file checks every 8 years. Well, 8 years, okay. Yeah, well, can I just go out and get they start sending them auto loans at 16 to 28%, literally before they even go to their first creditors meeting. So they jump on that because they think it's a way to rehabilitate their credit.
They're still locked into the paradigm. They still believe things are coming back, and they're still holding on. But they're in for a rude awakening, and they're about to lose a lot more if they haven't lost everything already. And most people are just uneducated. You talk to people on the street, as we were just talking about, and you mentioned Gaddafi and you mentioned some of the history. Most people say, you know what, I don't care. Nuke the Middle East is the response I get on the streets. I don't care. Nuke them all. That's what people tell me. So I want to make sure I go to
them all. The fact that they have innocent children. And I said, listen, what about what would you feel if somebody dropped a bomb through your living room while you were having evening dinner? I mean, those people are just people too. Listen, I'm for freedom everywhere. None of us are free until all of us are free, and that's globally. Stop thinking that, listen, it's okay to do something to people just because they don't look like us and they speak a different language and they praise a different God. That's wrong. We have to break that entrenched thinking in this country. No, that is not right. My daughter is not safe when a 2-year-old in Yemen is bombed by a predator drone and killed at a barbecue. None of us are safe while that's happening.
Yeah, well,
don't people understand that?
Hates America. Why do you think there's so much hate? Why do you think the rest of the world doesn't like us? And there's going to be retaliation. I mean, this is what Americans need to realize too. There's going to be retaliation. I mean, God forbid, no one wants to see it. All of us feel the same way you do. We don't want to see this. We don't want to see this, for future generations, our children, people we care about, our family and friends that we love. But it's coming because we do it to others. We're out there drone striking, families and, like you said, 5-year-olds over in Yemen as they're eating dinner over supper. So I want to thank Close Quarter Tyranny for giving us a call. Check out his channel. I know I am. I'm going to subscribe to it after the program's finished. But I want to make sure we do get to some of our other callers. So thanks for calling in.
No problem, Chris. It's good. People don't realize how lucky they are even to have this venue. People should take advantage of it while you still have it running. And anytime I can support you, you just drop me an email and let me know.
Well, appreciate that. Right back at you. And send me an email. You can send me a PM, or you can just send an email to info@greenwave.com. So, we need to connect with like-minded people, and we need to help each other. I want to go to our next caller here. Hi, you're on Greenwave Radio Live. Is anybody there?
Yes, I didn't hear you at the first time.
That's
Hi, Chris.
Okay.
This is Lisa.
How you doing?
From Texas. Fine. How are you? The last caller, he was great. He's my hero. As far as the brainwashing and the paradigms that people are in, this may sound a little geeky, but I am just reading all about that. I'm reading a book by John Coleman about the Tavistock Institute. They are really the hidden hand behind the propaganda and the brainwashing. It started with Bernays and Lippmann. It actually started in England with the Royal Institute of International Affairs. Anyway, in order to convince people that they have been brainwashed, I think it's important to show them the proof, the who, what, when, where, and why. Why they've been brainwashed, by whom, how. Those are important things because otherwise you're just spouting out another accusation. Oh, you're brainwashed. That's why I'm reading this book. I want to be able to show people, look, this is what they have done. Now, do you want to continue to be oppressed by that, or do you want to be able to be free of that? So I'm reading that book. I think it's fascinating that, it just really, that's what got us into the First and Second World War, was the propaganda that was scientifically and systematically done, and we're still suffering from it. So that is my
title. What is the title of that book again?
It's called the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations. That's the group, and they are basically the puppet masters behind all the think tanks and all of the think tanks, the foundations, and so forth. And it's run by the globalists. So
yeah, hold that thought. We gotta run to a quick break, but hold on. We'll bring you back on when we come back. Again, here with Storm Clouds Gathering, also our callers. We'll be back in just a few. Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Greene. This is Greenwave Radio Live. We are back. I'm on the line here with one of our callers. Wanted her to finish her thought. I quickly wanted to just mention that Solyndra, the company that Obama had directly supported, and they had granted, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars worth of loans to the solar panel company. And in fact, Obama actually spoke there, said, this is just a pure example of the recovery and, the greatness of America, and we're coming back, and green shoots, right before they went into bankruptcy. And it's coming out now that they actually considered a plan, Obama's administration specifically, considered a plan to save Solyndra that would have left the U.S. with as much as 40% equity and 2 seats on the company's board. And I read this stuff, and none of it's surprising anymore because it's so absurd. Companies literally just go bankrupt every 5 seconds, whether or not it's MF Global or Solyndra or Merrill Lynch or Bank of America or Bear Stearns or Lehman Brothers, on and on and on. every day is a new bankruptcy, but now it's countries that are bankrupt. It's sovereign debt. It's the Eurozone. It's the United States of America. We've been building into this for decades. This is where we are today, but it's absolute insanity. When did it ever become common practice to consider bailouts for every single country that is misappropriated and run into the ground? When did we ever sit around and say, we're going to save companies, or we're going to consider it like MF Global because John Corzine is, running the company into the ground and commingling client funds and customer funds? Is this really what America stands for? And this all comes back and drills back to what we've been harping on and talking about for years. It's about moral standards. It's about right and wrong. It is about righting the wrongs of these people, righting the wrongs of these criminal institutions, these global central banks, and righting the wrongs of these people such as Alan Greenspan, Ben Bernanke, and the rest of these leaders, the rest of these loan sharks, which is what they are, lending money to the public, imploding the firms that they represent, and then allowing and forcing the general public to pay the cost, to bear the brunt, to be expensed at the, benefit of the real top 1%. I want to go to our caller here so she can finish her thought. Caller, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Thanks. Anyway, that book is amazing. I highly suggest everybody read it. I'm going to read it and come up with a one-page synopsis for people, since they won't read a whole book, it seems, these days, because it shows what the agenda is, and the agenda is world government, and that was their plan all along. And, the one other thing I just wanted to mention, in addition to dealing with Wall Street and the, central banks and so forth, we also must deal with the second head of the Hydra, which are the politicians. I mean, after all, Congress is who allowed the Federal Reserve to come into existence in the first place. And I think the left and right could really get behind this slogan, and it was what really our country was founded on. And this saying is power to the people. And I don't think anybody could disagree with that unless they're just megalomaniacal and love huge government. And I think that we have to demand certain things from any candidate that is running for office, and we have to demand that they publicly come out and and embrace ending central banking, ending lobbyists. We have to, returning to value-based currency, and really ending a lot of federal departments and agencies, because we really don't need them. Returning power to the states, which really returns the power to the people. And we have to impeach unconstitutional judges, and we have to end the wars and protect our borders. And the most important thing, I think, really, we need to have a litmus test. And I think we need to demand that politicians will have enough courage to come out and publicly say, I am against the creation of a new world order, and I will not allow America to be melded into global government. It gets that's part of the mind control, is that they belittle that term when it's being used by them all the time, and they make fun of people who talk about that. And I think we need to take that away from them and be proud of knowing what they're knowing and publicly saying, this is what you're doing, and we're not going to stand for it. And we need to not be badgered by them and called names, and we need to demand that of anybody who wants to hold office, because if we do not get leaders in Congress and the judicial system who are willing to take the fight to these globalists, then we're not going to win. So that's my idea, is power to the people. I don't know who can agree with that. I think we need to demand a lot more from people running for office, and that they need to have the courage to stand up and say these things in public. Yeah. God.
We're not asking anymore. We're demanding. And I want to invite you back on the show when you do finish that book. We'd love to get a synopsis of it.
Okay, great.
And if you think it's worthwhile, I'm sure a lot of our other viewers, including myself, would love to read it. So
it is. It's fantastic so far. I'm learning more about history than I ever learned in any textbook in school, and this man, John Coleman, has a doctorate, and he is just a brilliant guy, and everything makes perfect sense when you read it. So I highly recommend the Tavistock Institute by John Coleman. So
okay, well,
anyway,
I will definitely
great stuff today.
Definitely look into that. Well, thanks for calling.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it. See if we can't go here to some of the other callers. Aaron, did you want to respond to any of those thoughts?
The only thing I was going to say is there was one last thing she's saying as she was leaving is that, like, if we don't get the Congress people to do this, and we're not going to win. Well, I would disagree. We don't need the congressmen to have power. The congressmen their power comes from us. When it really comes down to it, they're not going to give up the power. And the structure is far more ingrained than most people are willing to look at or have taken the time to look at yet. And they own the media structure. They have the candidates lined up 3 levels back so that they have the backup plan. If you do get out their people, we have to be looking at taking it back directly. I think that's the only way it's going to happen. Because quite frankly, I mean, if the CIA is capable of toppling governments in other countries and putting in their puppets in other countries, why on earth wouldn't they be capable of doing it here? Obviously, they're capable of doing it here. We've got to get rid of the CIA and all these organizations which enabled them to do those kinds of things, and it's not going to happen without a fight. It's not going to happen through the system.
Yeah, well, you can probably hear my fax machine going off there in the back. It's probably the CIA warning me of something, so please ignore that. But yeah, I mean, that is a pertinent point. I think where we have been presented with an amazing opportunity, and we also have an obligation to realize it. And I don't think a lot of us realize how much of an effect that all of us have already had and can and will have going forward simply by doing what we've been doing today, having a conversation, a real conversation, bringing up and discussing the hard issues, asking very difficult questions, putting it out in an open forum, organizing, and really challenging ourselves and challenging ideas, because it's all about ideas. The mainstream media is an extremely powerful organization. We know this. And how are we fighting these powerful organizations? We're fighting it through our own media, which we can become equally as powerful as if people support it. And if people continue to do that, we can unite, we can unify, and we need to do it around a central, fundamental cause. And in my opinion, my humble opinion, that is, we need to clean house. We need to do it now. We need to do it today. We need to end global central banks, and we need to jail and prosecute the people that they employ. We do that. We demand that, and we will get the real change that millions of us so desperately want, because the sleeping giant in America and the sleeping giant around the world is awaking to the tyranny. They are awaking to the enslavement. They are awaking to the chains. And all of us need to realize this, and we need to be conscious of what an opportunity that this is, and make sure that it is not a missed opportunity, because I very much instinctually believe we have one shot. This is our chance. This is our shot. With the confluence of events that are occurring now, with the acceleration of the wars overseas, what I believe to be World War III, with the acceleration of the structural and social collapse that we have here in the United States and Europe, with the acceleration of the sovereign debt implosion that we're seeing in Greece and Italy and Portugal and Spain and here in the United States, with the acceleration of the 2012 presidential election, with the rise to power of people such as Ron Paul that pretty much embody a lot of what we just talked about, a lot of what our caller was talking about, that opposes a new world order. Now, that person probably, most likely, isn't going to be elected and will not be our next president, unfortunately, because the powers that be and the people that are in control won't allow it. But these people, I argue, people like Ron Paul, and not just Ron Paul, people just like us, ordinary people, having the conversation might be having a bigger impact It might be doing something bigger and greater than any of these mainstream so-called famous people might be doing. So I want to leave you with that, and I want to leave you again with the quote that we opened up the program, and also thanks Storm Clouds Gathering for coming on. We always love having them on the show. History will have to record that the greatest tragedy of this period of social transition was not the strident clamor of the bad people, but the appalling silence of the good people. I'm Christopher Greene. This is Greene Wave Radio Live. Just deliver the daily wave, hard hitting it in your face. We'll be in touch soon, America.